What's up? Hey, the past few weeks have been crazy. A few weeks ago, I posted this to my IG stories. A bunch of you sent me lovely messages. Thank you so much if you did. But I do realize this was a bit out of character for me. I do not normally share this kind of thing. I try to keep it happy and healthy and like positive vibes and set healthy boundaries for me mentally. You know, if I am struggling with something, I try to share it after the fact, after it's been resolved, after I know things are gonna be okay, you know, we can keep it happy. But quite frankly, when this all initially went down, I did not know how I would be doing. I did not know what to expect. I was shocked. I was upset. I was happy. I was sad. I was struggling to deal with my own feelings. So as a disclaimer, this story is legitimately crazy, but hopefully by the end of this video, you will understand why I am sharing. So where the story begins is that I have IBS. Now I know this might seem random and unrelated. If you don't like toilet talk, I don't know what to say. These details are necessary to this story, but IBS stands for irritable bowel syndrome. I have a ton of videos on my channel about my journey with IBS, like bloating, digestion, strategies I've tried, all that jazz. Not really relevant right this second, but I have tummy issues that had been well managed for the past year until a couple weeks ago when I started experiencing bloating, like pretty bad bloating, which not normal for me, but I figured fine, I've been stressed out, you know, I'm gonna try my usual strategies, nothing. That bloating then turned into constipation, like 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, no poo, which was concerning for me because as someone who has worked very hard to become regular with my bathroom routine, not great. And also, from a very practical standpoint, there was a certain amount of food going into my body and that food was then not leaving my body. So it started as bloating, it turned into a dull abdominal pain, turned into, after a few more days of not being able to go to the bathroom, like sharp abdominal and pelvic pain when I tried to go. And when I touched my stomach, it was rock hard. I called my mom. I was so upset about this. So I thought, you know what? I know what to do. Laxatives. I feel like every teenage girl, this is a rite of passage. Maybe it was just me, but has at some point had the China Slimming tea. You know the tea I'm talking about? It's got like senna leaf or senna root as the active ingredient. It's often in like the health or diet product section. And when I have had this in the past, it has been violent. Like it definitely clears you out. So I just went in like guns blazing and I said, you know what? I'm gonna do 2 bags of China Slimming tea, really let it steep, and I'm just gonna clean out my body. Nothing. I didn't even get the urge to go to the bathroom, like those kind of spasms you feel when your stomach starts to get upset. Zero was happening for me, which as compared to my previous experiences with this tea, where like you're literally sprinting to make it in time, little disconcerting. So I figured, let's take it up a level. Let's do a colonoscopy prep. Now, I have never had a colonoscopy. I don't know if you've ever had a colonoscopy. You've maybe had a parent or a friend who has. Basically, it's when they do a very in-depth assessment, evaluation of your colon. So they put like a literal camera up your butt. And as you can imagine, you want things to be clean. So a colonoscopy prep is like power washing yourself from the inside out. It is supposed to be intense. It is supposed to be extreme. I have been with, I'm probably sorry, mom, for sharing. I've been with her before when she's been doing colonoscopy prep and it's like, it's intense. So I went online, I looked up, what do you get for a colonoscopy prep? Found all of it, followed the instructions over the span of about 2 days. And wouldn't you know, this time I was able to pass like a little, like tiny bit. But again, keep in mind, I had been backed up for days at this point. I had still been eating as you do to fuel your body. But again, we had the issue of what was coming out was not matching what was going in. And I still had that kind of sharp pain, that really hard belly. So I did it. I caved. I went on the internet and I started WebMDing what I was feeling. And in the span of, you know, probably about 10 minutes, I convinced myself that I had a bowel obstruction, that I had ovarian cancer, that I was just, my prospects were not looking good, which on a more serious note, ovarian cysts and growths on your ovaries can put, if they get big enough, pressure on your digestive system and other organs in that area, effectively creating a blockage, which can make you think that you're having a digestive symptom, which you are, but it's like a byproduct of something that is obviously very serious. So I went to the ER. Now, when you go to the ER, it is never a quick like in and out kind of experience. So you're hunkering down for at least a few hours, sometimes a full day. That was okay by me because I figured, hey, I've tried everything. If anything gets worse in the meantime, at least I'm already at the hospital and they will believe me because they will be able to see. A few hours go by, they call my name. I go back into the ER. Jeff couldn't come back because it is patients only still because of COVID. Go back into the ER. ER doctor was lovely, like calm, young, like great attitude. He was just fantastic. I gave him the same little rundown that I just gave you. He said, okay, from the sounds of it, could be a bowel obstruction or impaction. I forget the exact language he used. We're going to have to confirm it, but just as a heads up, the way that we resolve this is via manual extraction. I said, do what you gotta do. I need to poo. We got there in the afternoon. By this point, it was the later evening. ER doctor does a quick physical examination of my abdomen, just kind of like palpates around to try and feel what I am explaining to him. He says, yep, your stomach is definitely rock hard. I can see how this would be very uncomfortable for you. I would like to get some imaging done, some scans before we actually move forward to confirm that this is an impaction, to confirm that maybe it isn't a growth or something more serious like what you're worrying about. But again, it was later in the evening. This was a Friday night going into a long weekend. So getting like a CT scan or additional imaging was going to be tricky. But he said, you know what? I think we have ultrasounds in the ER. I'm just gonna have to go grab it. First ultrasound machine doesn't work. Yep, fine, I'll go get another. Jeff is still in the waiting room. Second ultrasound machine, up, running, ready to go. Gel on, probe the tummy, and I'll just put a picture on screen. Doctor very calmly says, this is not bloating. This is a baby. And from the looks of it, this is not a small baby. At first glance, this may be like a 6-month baby. The doctor was just as shocked as me. His bedside manner was fantastic. He kept it calm, he kept it neutral, but with how far along he estimated I was with this pregnancy, he wanted to get more information. So he started calling around immediately to other departments because again, it's a Friday night, we're going into a long weekend. Many of the like baby departments like obstetrics only operate during regular business hours. So eventually he was able to get through to labor and delivery. He said, hey, crazy situation. I actually don't know what he said, but he probably said something along those lines. Can I send her up there? Like, yup, we'll try to get her some scans. When I got there, I probably waited another hour or two. After that, get taken back into a private room. Sweetest nurse. Genuinely, I got so lucky with the people who were supporting me that day. Sweetest nurse comes in, she does a blood draw, she does a urine sample, comes back, maybe a half hour later, back to the room, says, yes, you are most definitely pregnant. At this point, I had not had a chance to process anything. Keep in mind, Jeff is still in the ER waiting room. Dog has no idea what is going on. He has been there for hours. He doesn't know where I am. He's keeping it calm, cool, and collected. But I realize this is not the kind of thing that you send over text. So nurse comes back, says, all right, we've got a resident who should be able to do some additional scans. It will take her about maybe an hour to get here. Do you need anything like a snack, a drink, any of that? No, thank you. But Jeff is down in the waiting room and he has no idea what is going on. Is there any chance we could get him up here? She was lovely. Of course, she said, if the people at the front desk give him a hassle, just tell them to call up to me. Okay, great. So I am FaceTiming Jeff on the literal DL because I am in this private room in a hospital bed, which that does not make sense. And on one side of me are infant sleep charts, and on the other side is a very clearly for babies ultrasound machine. So, hey, yes, great, Jeff, just waiting on some more scans, LOL. But I'm in a private room. There's a bathroom. If you want to come up, you can hang out. It's very comfortable. It's very nice. Here's where I am. Just by the way, as you come up, don't look at any signs. Like, no worries, just, press the button, come up, walk to the room, they'll guide you back. Jeff comes up, naturally, surprised, concerned, but once we established that I was not in labor and delivery to be going into a shock delivery, I think he was feeling a lot of the same feelings I was at that time. Like, what? How? When? Why? We obviously understood the basics of how these things happen. But for context, I stopped taking the birth control pill last December. Immediately after coming off the pill, I was surprised but very grateful. I had pretty regular periods, pretty regular cycles. Toward the end of that year, I had a traumatic event that was very tough on me mentally. I lost my appetite. I was not sleeping regularly. I was consuming so much caffeine. I was not doing things that were healthy. As you can imagine, there was not a lot of baby making activity, and when there was, safety was a priority. So I missed my period in January, took a pregnancy test, nothing. Now, I had originally gone on the pill when I was a teenager because I had horrific, irregular, very painful periods. So was this surprising? No. Was it upsetting? Yes, because I had been excited to have a regular cycle and, I was feeling really healthy in my body. But at the same time, I just kind of told myself, hey, you're not doing the best mentally right now. You're really going through it. So while this sucks, it does kind of make sense. You've been losing weight. You've not really been eating. You've not been thriving. Let's make it through this. Then we can focus on getting that period healthy. Back to the hospital. A resident arrives. It is quite late by this time. I don't know, 10 p.m., 11 p.m. This resident, she looks exhausted, but she was bringing her best attitude. I think she was also a little perplexed. She's like, did you expect this? No. How did this happen? Well, we both know how it happened, but the probability of this happening seems incredibly slim. She's like, did you have any signs or symptoms? Nope. Maybe, I have IBS. Maybe that masks something. I don't really know. I get going with the ultrasound. Hear baby's heartbeat. I did not know that baby's heartbeats were so quick. It's like 140 or 150 beats per minute. Crazy. But all the main things were there. We had the brain, the stomach, the spine, the fingers, the feet, a full baby in there, which was crazy to see. But then she started looking at other parts of the development of the baby, right? The things around the baby, the placenta, the uterus, my anatomy. And without getting into specifics, there were concerns about how the placenta was forming, which, even though this was very much so an unplanned pregnancy, was devastating because one of my biggest goals was and is to become a mom, to experience that part of my femininity, to feel the strength in my body, to go through the full scope of that journey, the good, the bad, the ugly of, carrying a baby, delivering a baby, and then seeing oh my gosh, this human came from me. The resident wasn't able to do much more that night as we really needed a specialist or just somebody who was a bit more specialized to do some additional scans to get a better idea of what was going on. So she gave me a referral. But like I said, we were going into a long weekend, so I had to sit with these feelings, sit with not knowing for at least the next 3 days before I could start getting any answers, figuring out what I was even booking, who I needed to see. So I hope this helps to explain why I did not share initially what was going on with me. Over the next couple weeks, so the past couple weeks, I have been an appointment queen. I have been in for every scan, every exam. We have looked at every angle, every aspect of my anatomy, the baby's anatomy, see what's going on. But my most recent appointment was this past Friday, my first OB appointment at 6 months, or so we're guessing. We're kind of operating off of a range right now because typically you would date a pregnancy much earlier in the pregnancy. To make a long story short, the initial scans were done by a resident who, while she was doing her best, these would typically be done better by a specialist. And honestly, still, based on what she was seeing, they were concerning. The baby was in a very weird position. There were concerns with my anatomy and how the placenta was forming. But based on all the follow-up appointments we've done over the past couple weeks, baby looks good. Baby seems to be forming in a way that is maybe actually not that concerning, that had just been a weird positioning. The organs look good. The heartbeat looks good. Baby is active, baby is kicking and rolling. Like we literally saw in the ultrasound, chewing the umbilical cord. So that is what's been happening. It is shocking. It is crazy. It should probably feel embarrassing. I think that the origin story, now that we know that baby is healthy, is pretty funny. But more than anything, I just feel happy. This was not a planned pregnancy. I have been pretty open on my channel, on my Instagram, you know, pregnancy is something that I wanted for me, was a goal, was maybe like, you know, a few years down the line. Seeing that baby on the ultrasound, I mean, the first time when I was in the ER, the second time when we went up to labor and delivery, and then like, we're crying. Then like when we did the more in-depth ultrasound and just seeing the baby like rolling around, like literally this 6-month-old little thing, I feel like already has a personality. It's just like wild and crazy and sneaky and like grabbing the umbilical cord, and just, I loved it. I loved it from the moment I laid eyes on it, even if I didn't think I could be ready for it, or I was ready for it, or I'd planned for it. This is gonna settle down. But other thing to update you on, my digestive issues have mostly resolved since the start of all of this. I mean, I have been catching up on so much reading because obviously I am 6 months behind where most people would be at this point of learning with a pregnancy, but constipation is a normal thing. The OB's theory for why it got so intense for me is that the baby had been growing behind my pelvic bone, which also explains why I was not showing for so long, and then all of a sudden, boom, I have a bump. And so when the baby was in the process of basically being too big to fit behind the pelvic bone and trying to move out from behind the pelvic bone, like during that, there was probably just a lot of pressure on my digestive system, which could have effectively created a blockage, would have made a lot of pain and discomfort for me. Kind of checks out in his books, makes enough sense to me. But yeah, I'm having a 3-month pregnancy. I hope this full story, this full context explains why I wasn't sharing. It has been such a roller coaster the past few weeks, but I am ultimately so happy. This is so exciting for me. PSA to my IBS girlies, especially if you don't normally get constipated, you know, if you've tried the laxatives, get a pregnancy test. And if it comes back negative, take another one. And if that comes back negative, for funsies in a couple of weeks, just like do one more, just in case. I have so much learning ahead of me. I am obviously not an expert on this, but I actually kind of love that, because that means that I get to take you along for the messier parts of this journey, the crazy bits, the ups, the downs, the everything I'm going to be experiencing. I do still, now that baby has moved from that very uncomfortable position, I do still feel great. I have been running, I have been lifting, I have been back on my more regular workout routine this past week. And I have to say, outside of this crazy bit of very dramatic way of finding out, I've had a really good pregnancy so far. I am planning on keeping up with my training. I am planning on keeping up with my fitness. Like, I'm training for this labor and delivery like a marathon. So if you made it this far, maybe let me know in the comments below if this is what you guessed was going on. I have had some people I've told personally be like, yeah, I kind of had a hunch you were pregnant, but like 6 months. Anyways, let me know. That's it. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I cannot wait to bring you on this crazy journey with me.